All right, I think we are good to go. Just trying to watch and monitor things as I get used to streaming on YouTube. There we go, welcome. It is 5 past noon on Saturday, November 9th in Boston. Much more familiar with streaming on Twitch, so again, I'm still trying to get used to YouTube, but this is the second one. I think we're gonna try to aim for weekly. This is your chance to, This is your chance to ask any English speaking or conversation related questions. Again, I'm trying to monitor the chat, but if you don't watch this live, you're watching the VOD later, just know that you're always welcome to leave a question in the comments, and if I don't get to it now, I might cover it in a future video. So just want to reiterate, questions are okay. If you could help me, I'm not going to ask you to like, share, subscribe, any of that stuff. It's nice if you do. But the main thing I want to know is, where are you from? Like, what time do you watch this video? And where are you when you're watching these videos? That way, that might give me a clue onto how I want to structure any kind of future content that I cover. But for today, we're going to be talking about interruptions. We're going to talk about the experience of going to a concert, and then we're going to cover some pronunciation stuff. So if you don't want to watch the live stream in total, because again, these are going to run about no more than 30 minutes. Maybe today might just be 20 or 15 minutes. I will cut them, edit them down into shorter videos. Like last stream, we covered this grammar hell question, and we also talked about candy in theme with Halloween. So expect the same with future videos, cut down, condensed from this stream today. So, interruptions. The main thing I want to cover is, when is it okay to interrupt? And this is inspired by a conversation I had with a business person in the past. And they really clung to the idea that if you respect me, you never interrupt me. The truest sign of respect is to never, ever interrupt. And I really disagree with that type of sentiment, but it's most important to think about what is the context. So first, let's cover the context where, yeah, you probably don't want to interrupt. When it comes to work, when it comes to business, you don't want to interrupt your boss. Even if your boss is wrong, even if management is wrong, you're going to be in a losing situation to interrupt in that case. Also, if it's something legal, a police officer, you're in court dealing with a lawyer, a judge, you don't want to be interrupting in that case. But the main reason why it irks me, why it bothers me, why I think it's worth discussing, I will edit that out, with your friends, I feel like most people who deal with that idea of interruptions, they are on two different extremes. You can have someone who's really talkative, a blabbermouth, but if you are introverted, if you're shy, I think being so trepidatious, a simpler vocabulary, if you're too cautious about not wanting to interrupt because you might be seen as disrespectful, you're really hurting yourself in how you can improve and get better at your conversational skills. So we want to make the distinction again. There's a difference between interrupting because you're so excited and then interrupting and the other person never gets to talk. Pepper meowing in the background. So I'll say it again for the edit. If you're both on the same page and you're interrupting and you're talking over each other because you are both excited, I don't think that's a problem, especially if what you're talking about is something that's interesting, something that's really fun. But it does get to a point where if you're interrupting them and the person never ever gets a chance to say their piece, you're always talking over them, it's a very one-sided conversation, yeah, that can be a problem. It's just that someone who's really shy, introverted, like it's like pulling teeth to get them to speak up, they're never going to be at the risk of always dominating the conversation, right? Now, could it be a mistake that you think you're both into it, it's okay, it's free-flowing, but it does become one-sided? Yeah, like the wrong person is heeding the wrong advice, I think, in that case. So the main takeaway from this, I just want to reiterate, is me and my friends, we talk over each other all the freaking time, and it's no problem at all. I think our dynamic would work out horribly if we're so focused on taking turns, we're being overly respectful. That's when it becomes robotic, inorganic. Like, it doesn't even feel like a live conversation, because if you're so focused on taking the turns, making it so overly ordered and structured in that way, you're probably not even really listening to that person either, because you're so caught up in your head. And I think that's a topic that I discussed before, when people are speaking too fast in conversation because they're so afraid of forgetting what they have to say. But the common thing that happens with me and my friends is we give each other the go ahead, the permission to be like, okay, you go first. I'll try to remember what I'm going to say. And sometimes we forget. But then that moment that we do remember, it's a chance to interrupt the conversation later. It'll be something very simple like, oh yeah, I remember what I was going to say. Oh yeah. Remember, blah, 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 blah. But don't be afraid of interrupting, especially when you're talking with your friends. Okay. Next thing, went to a concert last week, and there was this interaction with a couple in front of me who were non-native English speakers. So I thought it was a good situation to cover. So if you've never been to a concert in the US, there's a very typical procedure that happens. They're going to check your ID. They're going to do an item check, so checking your bags. And then they're going to sign you in by checking in your tickets. So again, ID check, item check, a ticket check. If you're a guy, item check is pretty easy. If you're not a guy, then, well, they're going to check your bag, your purse. A lot of venues might not allow backpacks, but just this order, because again, if you've never been to a concert, maybe you don't know what to expect. It's nothing fancy, nothing complicated, but this is the series that you're probably going to go through. Depending on how big, how crowded the concert is, it's possible that if they don't have enough staff, it might be a bit more disjointed. It might not be this order necessarily. I feel like this is the most typical order that might happen, but maybe they check the items first, then they check your ID, then the tickets. Maybe they do the tickets and ID at the same exact time, but none of this should be too surprising for you when you go through it. So phrases that you might hear that might be new to you that you don't want to be caught off guard with is have your IDs ready. So some variation of it. Everybody make sure you take your IDs out of your pockets. Get your IDs ready to show. Have your IDs ready. It's all the same thing. Like, you're hearing the keyword ID. The other thing is empty your pockets. Empty out your pockets. So keys, wallets, cell phones, smartphones. Just make sure that nothing is in there, because there's probably a metal detector that you're going to go through, or they might have a wand to wave you down. But have your IDs ready, empty out your pockets. Again, if you have a bag or purse, open up your bags, and they're going to go sift through that. So what if they sound angry? Or what if they tell you, what is that? You don't need to react to this, because what if they sound angry? Maybe they're just angry people. Another context cue that you need to think about is you're about to go to a concert. You're about to enjoy a show. You're about to listen to music. You're about to have fun. What is this person doing? They're having to work. They're having to deal with people. Now that we're in the fall winter season, they have to be outside. It's cold. Why wouldn't they be angry? You know, maybe you have a certain expectation for what customer service should be like, but just realistically, you're the one who's about to have fun. They're on the job. Who's going to be more angry in that situation, right? And then what is that? You don't have to freak out if they point out what is that, because they just might not know what you have on you. A lot of people carry chapstick or lip balm. I do myself. The brand that I use is pretty thick. So this guy is from the brand Fatco. He's incorporating beef fat. He's a big dude. I don't have a normal piece of chapstick to compare it to, but if we compare it to a pen, maybe, yeah, you can see that this guy is chonky. All right. So they might give you a stare. They might be confused. You don't have to take it personally. They just might not know what that is. So then the next step is, if they're angry and they ask you, what is that? You don't really have to do an extended conversation here. You don't have to fully explain yourself. You're like, oh, okay, here you go. And then, all set? Is everything okay? That's it. No further dialogue needed. You know, hey, empty out your pockets. Okay. What is that? Here you go. Stand, they check, they scan things. All set? That's it. Nothing further is needed. The main thing why I want to have this conversation is, after they check your ID, if you're over 21, they want to signify if you can drink or not, so they'll probably put a wristband on you. I don't know why, but typically it's the right wrist. So what happened was, the couple in front of me, they checked their IDs. ID was okay. The staff attendant, the attendant asked the girl for her right wrist, and the girl was so confused. And she just repeated back, Rairu? It sounded like Scooby-Doo. Rairu? She didn't even do the hand gesture. I'm doing this to emphasize like what we're talking about here, the right wrist. But she was just so confused. I don't know how ID checks work in other countries. If you're underage, they'll draw an X on the back of your hands to show that you shouldn't be served alcohol. That's all that procedure is. If you're over 21, but you don't drink anyway, I guess you don't have to show your ID. But if you are planning to go to a concert and you do want to drink alcohol, make sure you have your IDs on you. Otherwise, you're not going to be served. That's the main thing there. So, the procedure, once again, and then if it's new vocabulary for you, your right wrist. Okay, your right wrist. Maybe your left wrist, but your right wrist. The last thing we're going to do, a little bit of pronunciation practice. This was a comment from a video from years ago. This individual mentioned they had issues with the TL pronunciation. And to talk about this point, before we get into the TL pronunciation, I want to talk about the R sound, specifically the Japanese R. Okay, so if we lump it together, you're learning Japanese, ra-ri-ru-de-ro, ra-ri-ru-de-ro. To me, the Japanese R sounds like a soft D. So some people will say it's not a hard R, so not ra, re, ru, re, ro. I have this out of order. Let's edit this in real time and take it from the top again. Okay. Before we get into the TL pronunciation, let's reference it. Let's compare it to the pronunciation practice of the Japanese R. So Japanese R, ra, ri, ru, de, ro. To me, it sounds like a soft D. So I might have butchered that a little bit there. Japanese purists, native speakers, you can feel free to correct me. Da, di, do, de, do. Da, di, do, de, do. It's not a hard R. It's not ra, re, ru, re, ro. And it's not an L sound. It's not la, li, lu, le, lo. I know that some Japanese instructors, they'll try to teach the sound like, oh, well, the Japanese R, it's like a blend of R and L. And if that makes sense to you, if you hear it that way, that's great. But to me, it sounds like a soft D. And as I say it, even if it doesn't sound like a soft D, me imagining it sounds like a soft D is what allows me to try to make the sounds da, di, do, de, do. Da, di, do, de, do. So why is that important? Because when I go into this explanation of these TL sounds, I have them grouped because these different groupings affect how the TL sound is when it's blended together. Maybe my explanation will make sense. Maybe it doesn't click with you. Maybe you need to tell yourself something differently in order for you to match the sound. whatever you have to tell yourself for pronunciation is the most important thing. So we don't have to be on the same page. We don't have to align. But my way of explaining it is how I think you can activate that sound. The most important thing is be selfish. Like whatever advice you have or get, you need to cater it towards you because it's your life. It's your way of speaking and pronouncing things, okay? So let's start with this first category up here, because this is the most segmented, where the TL doesn't blend together and the T sound is actually pretty strong. We have exactly, gently. So I'm over exaggerating it, so let me say it a few more times to be a little bit more natural. Exactly, gently. To me, there's more emphasis on the T in both of those cases. Again, exactly, gently, exactly, gently, exactly, gently. Okay? The next two words here, I feel like there's more emphasis on the S sound. So we have castle, whistle, castle, whistle. In this case, it's almost like, to me, the T isn't even there. So you see this? You don't need to be doing the T sound at all. Some other people might tell you like the T is like just barely present there, but I feel like it's just castle, whistle, castle, whistle, castle, whistle. We'll do sentence practice at the very end. The last category, where I feel like it's maybe the most common, is when you have the two T's together with the L. I guess the very last word here, there's no double T, but it's still the same pronunciation sound. And in this case, the main thing that I think helps, and it's very similar to the Japanese R, is you don't want to make the T too harsh. To me, these double T's, they almost sound like a soft D. So we have bottle, little, settle. I heard it right there. Maybe a little bit of a T. Subtle. So settle, subtle, maybe we can put that in our own category. But the double T's of bottle, little, I'm not saying bottle, little. It's not overly segmented in that way. You make it really soft. Bottle, little. So for you, if it still sounds like a T, okay. Other people, maybe it sounds like a D sound. Bottle, little. Okay, bottle, little. We have settle, settle, and subtle, subtle. The most important thing, as we wind down, tying this all together, practicing these words in isolation does not help you at all. So we have the screen, exactly, gently, castle, whistle, bottle, little, settle, subtle. Don't practice that way because that's not going to help you. It's going to make you feel like you're improving or it's quick and easy, right? But you really need to think about what situations you're going to use these phrases or these words. So exactly, that's exactly right. That's exactly what he did. Can you think of a situation where you would say that? Great. If you can't even think of a situation you would say these words, then that's a low priority for you. You don't have to stress out over it. Gently. Maybe, I don't know, you're instructing someone how to cook. Gently knead the dough. Gently do something to the food. I don't know. Like that's a clear sign that gently is not really going to be part of my vocabulary set. I can't think of a situation where I need to do it. Castle, if you're going to go sightseeing, are there any castles nearby? You know, what's the biggest castle in town? Whistle? I've never been able to whistle. You know, all my friends are really good at whistling. The conversation I had earlier today is some people don't realize that in fall, in autumn, you can still get allergies. And when my nose gets stuffed up, sometimes I have a nose whistle that happens. Okay. If you're not really talking about nose whistles, if you don't care about your ability to whistle, maybe you're not going to use that word. Maybe if there's a car problem that you have, there's like some sort of weird whistling sound, then the word's not even whistle, but whistling. It's like very, very specific and unique. Bottle. We use bottles. I think a lot of us use bottles almost every day, but talking about a bottle, using the word bottles, unless you're a parent that, oh, you need to clean the bottles for your baby or you need to buy some bottles. Everyone else, you could easily substitute that word for we need more water, right? Hey, can you pick up some bottles of water? No one's going to be saying that. Hey, can you pick up some more water? We're out. Little. Oh, he used to be so little. Or does that hurt? A little bit. When is he going to get here? In a little bit. Okay. Maybe those are some expressions you could use. Settle. Never settle. Maybe that's the catchphrase right there. Always treat yourself, prioritize yourself, never settle for less. And then subtle. Subtle is like something that's minuscule, right? Like not really obvious. Did you see it? Did you notice it? Oh, it was a little subtle, but I think I got it. Like, see, that's not really lending itself to conversation. So everybody's situation and affinity for these words is going to be different. Maybe you are in a role where you need to use certain words more often. Maybe at your job, you'll have to use certain words more often. Like they're going to be more pertinent to you. Then if it is a word that you have to use, then you just have to put more practice towards it. That's all it means. So I think that's all I have for today. And my cat is about to use his litter box. So we're going to close out here. Again, any questions? I don't see anybody in the chat right now. So after the fact, if you're watching the VOD, you have something that comes to mind, you can leave it in the comments below. Let me know where you're watching from and what time you watch this. Otherwise, everyone have a great